Good evening, my rabbis. I can't say good night of Shabbos because this is a Tuesday night edition, but it's Hachonah Shabbos. That's right. So on our Maharal, we're in Gvuras Hashem. We're going to do the fight of Esav Sar Shal Esav Yaakov. The Torah Kedosha says, "Vayiga bekaf Yerech Yaakov." He touched the kaf Yerech Yaakov. Why? Why that part of the body? That was Darton. It was up to kaf Yerech. Says the Maharal. We're going to start from over here, then we're going to work our way a little bit backwards. The Maharal says, we'll go a little bit. Lefichach. Right over here. V'lefichach. Please. They were fighting umala avak ratzaloyme his gabris kol echad mitzad malosai. When it says that they were fighting and the avak, they were mala avak, and Chazal teaches who went up to the kisei hakavod, each one came with a maila over the other. The advantage of the malach over Yaakov and the advantage of Yaakov over the malach. What is that? He doesn't have a guf to hold him back. He's an angel and pure. The Yaakov, Yaakovinu has a guf. He's got a tzelem elokim. Ein kan, right? The ein kan and angels malachim do not have a tzelem elokim. As it says, we spoke about this. Says in Zvar Inyan Zeh, we explained this in Sefer Derech Chaim. Ma'ashamu chaviv adam shenivra b'tzelem elokim. Vayikach oiseh b'kabolah min ha'kosav shomer ki b'tzelem elokim also eso adam. So the tzelem elokim that a human being has is something that a malach doesn't have. Vayipach ba'apav nishmas chayim. The fact that a person is b'tzelem elokim also as adam means that a person has a chelik of the Eibishter in him in a way that malachim don't have. Therefore, the malach cannot overcome him. Indeed, between the malach and Yaakov Avinu has something that the malach doesn't have. He has a tzelem elokim, and there's no way the malach, as kodesh v'torah as the malach is, but he doesn't have that tzelem elokim. So, but yet we do find that the malach has some type. There's an Achilles heel. There's something that Yaakov Avinu makes Yaakov Avinu susceptible. What is that? There's one thing that the malach has, we call it in Yiddish, as a ken unrin, that he can touch Yaakov Avinu. What is that? Mokoim shuhu hepech haponim.
How's that touching?
Mokoim shuhu hefach, the opposite of panim, of the face. The panim. What's the opposite of the panim? That's what you say. I guess the Maharal says something else.
Yeah.
Why? Kimoi shapanim hu atzura shu atzelem elokim iker. Where is the tzelem elokim of a person? It's on his face. It's on his face. V'achaymer botol etzloi. Let's explain for a minute. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one and only. Azoi Zokman. Hu ani rishain v'ani achrain. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the ein einziger. Shema Yisrael Shema Keno Shem Echad Yochad Miyuchad. You know what? There is something else in the world that's Yochad Miyuchad too. You know what it is? Yeda mensch. Every individual. In the entire almost 8 billion people that there are in the world, there's only one of you. Only one. There's only one. There's only one that looks like you. Where do you see that? Not in your hand. Not in your toes. You see that in the face, in the tzuras upon him. They tell you, but there's somebody in the world looks, where is he? He's in China. So he doesn't look like you anyway. Because he's probably a little shorter and his eyes look different. There's nobody that looks like you. And there's 7 billion, 8 billion people in the world today. And there's been billions of people. And every lefichach nivra adam yechidi. When Adam was created, there wasn't herds of men that came out like there was animals, chayes. One einzige Mensch, one and only. And ever since then, every human being that's born comes out Yechidi. And that's the pshat in Tzelem Elokim. Just like the Eibishter is one, one and only one, so too every single person. That's why Chayiv Adam Laima B'Shvili. If we don't do our job, every single one of us, no one can do it for us. And the world depends on us, and the world is a better place thanks to the fact that we do our job. And when we don't do it, it's not the same. And there's no one else like us. So Eibishter is the one and only. But we are, in a certain sense, because we have the Tzelem Elokim, that's also the one and only. And where do we see that? We see that with the surah of the person that's the most individualistic part of the person. What's the most individual part of the person? The most individual part of the person is his face. And that's the one thing you don't cover up. Every other part of the body, it needs to be covered for one reason or another. The only thing that is revealed, it's the chelek which is gilui, which supposed to be. Even a person who's tsanua, right? So you cover up your arms, your feet. We cover up different parts of our body. There's certain parts that not meant to be covered unless it's cold outside. So you have to wear a mask, right? Ich weiß nicht, right?
They're not doing it for sneeze, trust me.
That's the Tzura Sa'adam, and that's the Tzelem Elokim. The Hepech of that, the opposite, the Hayerech, hu lehepech hatzura. The Yerech, which is Vayiga Bekaf Yerech Yaakov. He touched the place where the Maharal is about to teach us is pinked the opposite of the Bunim. The opposite of the Bunim is the Yerech, because that's meant to be behalten. Where else besides for Vayiga Bekaf Yerech Yaakov is the Yerech prominent and mentioned? In the Parsha of Soita, the Torah Kedosha says that when this lady, if she sinned and did what she wasn't supposed to do, the Torah Kedosha says, then ve'es yerchech noifeles ve'es bitnech tzava. Although her entire body will explode, it starts off with the yerech. Rashi quotes a Gemara in Soita, Daf Ches Amid Beis, a Mishnah. B'midah she'adam moidedim oisai. The way midah keneged midah. What's the midah keneged midah? He koshtes atzmai la'aveira. She made herself beautiful for another man, not her husband. This Soita. So now we're menavel her. When they take her to the Beis HaMikdash, they make sure that she looks not, that they disbeautify her. They make her menuvel. He goes as atzmoi la'aveira. So therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they're megala, they take off her sheitel. She was megala herself. He, says the Mishnah, he biyerech his chila ba'aveira, biyerech noifeles tchila. The yerech is the part of the body that was the first mokoim tachlis of the aveira. That's where she was machshel him. That's where she blows up first. Says the Maharal, Uma shehayerech, next paragraph. Uma shehayerech yihepech haponim. Ki haponim hu begilui. That's the part of the person that's meant to be revealed. This identifies us as who we are. It's the honor and the respect of a person. It's our individuality. V'zeu inyan atzura. Shatzura bo hakeirosoi shalanimtza mahu. When we talk about what's the tzura of a person, it's who you are. Mimshan gezugt et lechamol. We say so many times from the Maharal that there are three relationships a person has. Bein Adam lemokoim, bein Adam lechaveiroi, ubein Adam leatzmoi. How does a person act when there's nobody else looking? That describes what's our tzura dehos. What do you do has nothing to do, I'm acting this way because Yena kicked, and the other person is going to say, and even with the Eibush, forget about all that. Who are you? What do you stand for? Berbis D. Remember I told you over once a story. I said it over many years ago. Rabbi said that a story had to wait 3 months before he said over a story. Because Oilam would remember stories. That's what he used to say. Dvar Torahs he would sometimes say, and the next week. But that's it. But Baruch Hashem, I have a much better crowd. I can't even say a Dvar Torah. A year later, they already remember. But stories zichron, the stories they forget, Baruch Hashem. But I told over this Maisa, and it's Negea for now. There was a fellow who used to live here in Muncie. His name was David Brown. He used to be a travel agent. Gedenkste Maisa.
I knew David.
Yeah, you knew him too. David Brown was a travel agent. He was from England. Back in the days before the computers, we're going about 30 years ago. Before there were computers, before you could book your own tickets online. David Brown told me the following story. So as a person from England, he had a lot of shaykhs to British Airways. British Airways here in the United States of America was divided into two parts, west of the Mississippi and east of the Mississippi. The fellow who was in charge, the CEO of British Airways in America, west of the Mississippi, was a fellow who lived in Malibu, California. David was a good friend of his. They did a lot of business together. One day they're talking, and he knew him for years, and he chapped that the fellow was a Yid. He had no idea that he was Yiddish. He chapped that he was a Yid.
How?
I don't know how. That makes a kasha famaisa. He chapped that he was a Yid. He chapped that he was a Yid. So he says to him, tell me your background. He says, my background, I learned in Gates at Yeshiva. He says, you want to hear something interesting? He says to David, I live in a big house in Malibu. Unfortunately, I married somebody I shouldn't have married. Unfortunately. But at yeshiva, I've never forgotten even though I don't look that way, you should know that yeshiva made a difference. The other day, I'm in my house. It's at night. It's supposed to be 10, 11 o'clock at night. I'm thirsty. My kitchen is 4 flights down. And I'm going to go downstairs and take a drink, and I think to myself, die Baal Taiva was the best. So I'm not going. Then I think to myself, Ed, you're an Atzlan. You're an Atzlan. You're not going down to get a drink about the best foal. You know what that means? You're lazy. You know what I did? He says to David, I went downstairs, I poured a drink, and I didn't drink it. Ich bin nicht kein Atzlan, und ich bin nicht kein Baal Taiva. That's ben Adam la'atzmai. There's a certain tzura that a person has. There's certain things that a person does or doesn't do. Forgive me for a minute. When people go swimming, I'm using that as an example. Or when people eat places, or how they eat. It's nobody else's business, let's say, but it's your own business. Are you careful to make sure other people shouldn't see the way you're dressed, or be careful that you are dressed or not dressed, or how you eat, right? The person eats a grub. It's nobody else's business. Oh, but that's called tzura. Tzura means to say how a person fears with himself because of himself. And that's called a punim. That's the covet of a person. That's the respect. That's who the person is as an individual. That's the chelik of the chashivas, the chazakta ve'iso le'ish. The opposite is the soita. The opposite is the yerech. Vayiga bekaf yerech Yaakov. The Chelek Haguf, which is the opposite of the Tzuras Adam, says Maharal, let's read it inside in a minute, is that part of the physical body. Yaakov Avinu, Chazal says, refers to not him, but his children. Because Yaakov Avinu was Kodesh V'Tahar. And all of his kinder were Shiftei Ka. Like we talked about many times. Yaakov Avinu was the first person who was Zoicha, that his Zivugim were Zivugim with the Eibishter. Shiftei Ka. Right, like all the names of the Shvatim and Parshas Pinchas have a Hey and a Yud surrounding them. The name Yud K, which finds itself by the Ish and the Isha. And Shloisha Shutfim Ba'adam, there are 3 Shutfim, Hashem Yisbarach, a father and a mother. Why? Why? Because the Eibishers are Shutef. When? With Yaakov Avinu. Shiftei Ka. That's when it started. Avram and Sarah brought down Kinderloch, but they brought down a Yishmael too. Yishmael is not called Shiftei Ka. He's not part of that. So he doesn't have that koyach. Esav doesn't have that koyach. Yaakov Avinu has that koyach. Yaakov Avinu was called Kodesh V'Torah. When Yaakov Avinu says to Lavan in last week's parsha, Havili ishti v'yava yeleha. I want my wife. I want to live with her. Right? You want to live with her? Meret nishtazoi. Says Rashi, Kal Shebekalim, don't talk that way. How do you say such a thing? Zogt Rashi, Elo sheniskaven lahoylid Bunim. You wanted to have kinderlach. So my Rabbi Zechron Levach had gefragt, okay, you want to have kinderlach, but meret nishtazah. You don't talk that way. You don't say explicitly why you want to live with her. So what is that? What kind of excuse is that? Lahoylid Bunim. Is that be a mensch? Hat der Rebbe gesagt, nein. Lahoylid Bunim iskaven. There was nothing else in Yaakov Avinu's mind other than Lahoylid Bunim. That's all by Emitas Grei Kodesh V'Noki. And Yaakov Avinu was Taka. Every name was a expression of the Shutvis of the Eibishter. Reuven Roy Hashem es Oini Shimon Shema Apam Yilova Ishti Apam everything in Ishgiven. You know, let me give her a name. Let's look up in the book where we find the name. No. It was how they were miskasher with the Rabbi Shem in this child. How the Rabbi Shem was a shutif in this child. That's the name of the Shvatim. And from that, all Klal Yisrael comes. All the families. L'mishpechoisam, l'beis avoisam. The opposite of the Saita was Yaakov Avinu. But Noga bekafi yerach yoytze chalotzov. The lowest part of the human being is when the human being acts like a maisa behema, just for lust, without any respect whatsoever for the bond of a husband and a wife. Vayiga bekaf yerech Yaakov. That is mamish the opposite. Let's see the lashon of the Maharal. Ki ayerech heipach aponim. Shaponim u begilui. Lefi aponim u iker tzura. That's the iker tzura shemetzima nimtza bepoyel mashu. It shows me vos is der mensch, who he is. Vayerech u beseiser mokem choyshech. V'zeu inyan achoymer she'ena metzias. This is the Yetzer Hara that's known as the Isha Zoina. Right? That's that chelik of a person, of the lower part of who we are. And that was what the Malach was saying. You might be Kodesh V'Torah, you might have a Tzelem Elokim, but you're in a guf, and that guf pulls in the other direction. Vayarki lo yuchaloi, he couldn't touch Yaakov Avinu. He couldn't hurt Yaakov Avinu. Noga b'yoytze chalotza, but the kids are not going to be able to stay on that madrega. And in the Tzuras Adam, that's where a person finds himself deficient. That's what Chazal say was the fight between him and the eagle, and the angel of Esav, of that Satan. Aber Basoif, as we know, Yaakov stopped limping. Vayizrach lo yashemesh, and then he was tzolal yerechai, but not for long. Eventually, he ended up healing, and all parts of Klal Yisrael, which means that the whole guf hat sich ziegestellt back to that Tzelem Elokim. And that's the Kedushas Yaakov Avinu. That's why in the Bracha, we talk about Kedusha. We talk about the essence of being the right type of person and standing for something and for being holy. That's the Madrega of Yaakov Avinu. Ata Kodesh, V'Shimcha Kodesh, U'Kedoshim B'chol Yom Ya'alucha Sela. That we have that holiness. That's Yaakov Avinu and that's Klal Yisrael. That's our identity. And that's the name Yisrael that we were Zoichet to because we beat the Malach. And even though along the way we limp, because the Malach has a Nagia, but eventually we're Zoichet to throw it away, we're able to heal ourselves and become, that's why in Yom Kippur state, we take a Seir LaZozel, comes from Esav, we throw him what belongs to him, and Yaakov, which is Ish Tam, Yoshev Aholam, is Noki from Chet. And the mistakes that we make, we could say, is not Shaykh to the Chelik HaYaakov, to the Chelik of Yisrael. It's the Esav in us, that's the one who's Noga with us, and that we can get rid of. So Ma'ala Zoiches and Bezus Hashem Yisbarach, Klal Yisrael should stop limping along, walk straight and proud, and with its face and head held high.